So the issue is not so much that they don't understand how to fight. They don't understand what violence is. They don't understand what it is they're supposed to be doing. The problem really is it's their intent when revealing the information. So what you get from a lot of these guys is they learn to move. They like to move. It's cool. They think maybe and this is questioning some integrity with this piece, but they think that the crowd that they're speaking to doesn't know this information. So there's that sort of wow factor, right? And with the wow factor, what you get are people who are so impressed with the information that they sort of blur the context that this information is supposed to fit in, right? So when it comes to like how I weigh the training time, how I sort of create this priority, this allocation of time when it comes to training, I think one of the things that I prided myself on very early on was the probability of actually needing this stuff, right? The probability of what I'm going to show you, chances are you're going to need to do in whatever it is the format that, I'm presenting this as an answer to, right? So if we're talking about getting into a fight in the street, I'm not showing you a tournament technique, a scissor sweep from the guard that requires this grip and this grip. It's not to say that these things won't present themselves, but the probability is so small that I think the allocated training time to those techniques should be negligible. It's almost like you want to expose people to it, but you don't really want them to sort of run those reps, right? Sort of drive those neural pathways into place, install it into what it is that we know, right? What we know, right? So I think if you guys think about math, right? Now, I was a math guy. I was a fan of math, I was one of those just nerdy kids that I was on the math team, and we would go to math competitions, and I'd buy math books, right? Go to the bookstore, and back when they used to have bookstores, right? and I'd buy math books, and I'd want to just practice, but it's not about that. So the thing is, I know math. I'm a fan of math. I went all the way up to AP Calculus in school. I got, back when the SATs were I think 800 and 800, I got a 720 on the math, right? So I was a math guy. Since then, I am a business owner, I am a coach, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a business consultant. I do a lot of different things. I use maybe 30% of the math that I learned in school, right? The adding, subtracting, multiplying, like, sure, there's some probability stuff. There's some calculating, some basic algebraic stuff when trying to determine certain factors, right? Solve for X, right? But the whole thing is, I do not use the lion's share of math that I spent so much time learning. Now, I'm not sitting here saying, math is useless, only learn how to do this, this, and this. But what I'm saying, as somebody who actually enjoyed the process of learning math, when it came to applying that information in reality, it just didn't happen. Now, I'm sure the path would have changed if I became an engineer, if I became some sort of a scientist, right? Doctor, what have you, physicist. And there was a time where I thought that was going to be what I did, but I didn't. And being that I didn't, I have a much more, I would say, common math need. Right? So now what do I mean by this? Like, how am I tying this into how it is that you guys are training? Well, what I want you guys to understand is there's a certain point where it's my job to make sure you're really good in terms of violence, of the addition and subtraction of violence, the multiplication and division of violence. There are going to be some other things we'll deal with, right? Concerning, using the math, metaphor for what we're learning in violence. But what I'm going to avoid, and what I see happening time and time again, and you just need to go on YouTube and search through Combatives videos for this stuff, is you see guys who probably have a strong understanding of the addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, let's say the basics, of violence. but they learned a algebra move and are trying to share it with their audience, their students. They've learned a calculus move and they're trying to put it out on their videos on their YouTube channel or whatever. And I think that is not only ineffective, right? Because that's really the argument. The argument is that it's ineffective. Aside from that, I think there's probably a little bit of an integrity piece we could explore. Why is it that these people are taking students that, last week learned addition and subtraction and this week are trying to crush some calculus, right? And that's one of the biggest problems I see. So how do I address it? I make sure that you guys have a solid understanding, right? There's something called the 80-20 rule. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this before, but it's basically saying that when we're talking about distribution of probability and I don't even know if that makes sense. I know a lot of you guys went to public school. So just go with it for a second. I think when you're looking at what the 80-20 rule is, it's basically 20% of the stuff solves 80% of the problems, right? Just think of it in those terms. And I think that is the approach that more people need to take when teaching violence to people. There are so many factors involved in what it is that you guys have to deal with. If shit hits the fan, right? If it's go time, if you guys, get that green light and it's time for action out there. You don't want to have this hesitation or really obstacle to trip over of I'm going to try obscure techniques. I'm going to be trying to do some calculus when all I need to do is add 1 + 1.